So in part one of this video, I was a little apprehensive. I didn't get into all the details of everything that happened because I wanted to kind of test the waters first. But since something bad did not happen after I posted that video, I'm going to tell you the whole story. So anyway, that's me when I was 5 at the house, and that's Barbara, my older sister. And Barbara had an incident. I think she was like 16 when it happened. And that was what first made us realize what we were dealing with, that a man that has like insane powers or witchcraft or whatever. So let me tell you what happened. So Barbara is, I think, maybe age 16, and she's hanging with this guy named Melvin. I don't know if it's her boyfriend or just a friend. Anyway, he says, "Do you want to drive my car?" And she said, "No, I don't know how to drive." So he says, "Try it." So she gets behind the wheel, she drives, and I don't know what happened, but she told me what happened was, here's the monk's house. Somehow she drove into this wall, this retaining wall. I don't know if it was here or here. I think it was here, because I remember this whole wall was crumbled. All the cement was just crumbled. And, I didn't know what happened until she told me. And she said, "Oh my God," she said, "he let me drive the car." And it was like 3 a.m. I drove into I'm going to say his name, Father Gerard's. That's what he called himself, Father Gerard. I drove into his wall in front of his house and it crumbled. She said, "But nobody saw me. It was 3 a.m. And she goes, I feel really bad. I don't know what to do. I couldn't report the incident because I didn't have a driver's license. And he asked me if I wanted to drive. And I said, okay. So anyway, she was panicking over that. Then, you know what? She had to be older because she was already working at Meyer Brothers downtown Paterson. So let's say she's 18. I don't know. So now the next morning, she's on this corner waiting for the bus. Right in front of his house, right here. The bus number 54 used to stop here and go downtown Paterson. So she's standing here in the corner waiting for the bus to go to work at Meyer Brothers. She worked the Revlon counter at Meyer Brothers. And the bus didn't come yet, but the monk, Father Gerard, came out of his house and said, "I'm going downtown. Do you want to ride to work?" And so she said, "Okay." So then she said he had to stop in the house. I don't know if she went in the house with him, but he came out and then he said he was going to drive her to Meyer Brothers downtown Paterson, but she got in the car with him and she said he did not take her there. He took her to Broadway, which was down this road. I don't know how many miles. And he took her to Broadway and he let her out of the car there. And it was nowhere near downtown. And she said she got out of the car and she was seeing double. She couldn't see good. And she was almost blind. And she was walking into walls and stuff. And so she didn't know what was going on. She explained the story that night when she came home, and weird things were happening. She had a rash on her leg that looked like a red line going into different patterns. She had a fever of 102, and she was describing, what happened. He left her off on Broadway and she was walking into walls, and she walked into this store door and the guy let her in and he said, "What's going on with you?" And she said, "I can't see good. And she told him what happened the night before when she hit the Father Gerard's wall and busted up his cement wall. And then the next morning he offered her a ride and dropped her off there. And she said she didn't eat or drink anything from him, so she didn't think she was drugged. But he said, "Come in, I'm a deacon, I'm going to help you." And then he explained to her, some people have powers and they can choose to use their powers for good or evil. And this person chose to use his powers for evil. And so he said, "What I suggest you do is, do you belong to a church?" And she said, "Yes, Madison Avenue Baptist Church." She said, "Go see the pastor of the church and tell him what happened." So she called the pastor, I remember, and he was he was like, I'm coming over to your house. So the pastor came to our house, and I remember, I was younger, but I remember my sister burning up with fever and showing her thigh where she had red lines, like in a pattern, and we couldn't figure out what the pattern was. And it was so weird. We didn't know what to think, but the pastor also agreed that, he's using his powers for evil. And, he said, you thought no one saw you drive into that wall and bust it up, but he knew that it was you, and he wanted you to walk into things. This was his payback or whatever. And so, eventually she healed. But I distinctively remember that happening. And that was when we realized this guy has powers, and, he's scary to deal with. So that was one incident. Now, here's an old picture of Barbara here, the one that crashed into the wall and had that incident. And then this is my other sister, Patty, she was the one who first wished McDonald's to burn down, not realizing that it was really going to happen. But anyway, just to show you old pictures that I found. So back to Patty now. She had more incidences where she wished things to happen and they actually happened. I found this old picture too. I'm on the right and Patty's on the left. So at age, I want to say 18, Patty had a son. And when he turned 3, she had my sister Barbara babysit him while she went to work. And when she came back to pick him up, his hand was all burned, like really deep burns, like 3rd-degree burns on his hand when he was 3 years old. And it turned out her boyfriend, Barbara's boyfriend, didn't like hearing a baby cry. So he took his hand and he put it on a heater, one of those space heaters, and held it there, thinking that'll stop him from crying. Well, my sister was furious, and you don't mess with someone that has powers like she did. We were scared of her. And what happened was she picked her son up. She was so furious. His name was Eugene. She wished him to die. And out loud, she said, I hope he dies. Because her son's hand, now her son is like 40 now, or 40 something now, and his hand is still permanently scarred from that burn. But anyway, she said, I hope he dies. And soon after, he was found dead on the streets of New York City of an alcohol overdose, they said. So another incident Patty had when she was younger, she used to go down the shore with her friends, and her friends were goofing around on the beach, and this guy was harassing her to no end. And she just said, I hope you break your arm. And like an hour went by, and next thing you know, the friends were like goofing around. They had him in a blanket. They were throwing him up in the air in a blanket or something. I don't know. He hit the sand and he broke his arm. So we were definitely afraid of her. But after we left this house, her powers no longer worked. She tried with people that did her wrong, but it seemed like her powers no longer worked when we moved away from this monk. So here we are as kids in Eastside Park on that cannon statue. I don't know if it's still there or not, but that's me on the right. That's David. His story I didn't do, but he has another story that's outrageous. Anyway, there's Patty. And then here's Lorraine. Lorraine's story was completely outrageous. I had to do a separate video just for her story, and I attached it to this video, part 1. If you saw it, another outrageous story. Now here's me and Judy when we were like, 14. I told you about Judy in my previous video. We worked at McDonald's together. Anyway, we were best friends from like age 12 to the time she died. She died very young at age 51, I believe. And she had a heart attack. This is crazy. I found this while I was looking through old photos. My aunt started a family tree back in 1987. Here I am, Jane Elizabeth, born in 1960, age 27. And here's the rest of the gang. Now, who's still alive? Elaine passed away of baby powder ovarian cancer 15 years ago. My oldest brother, Edward, he's still alive. Barbara's still alive. Lorraine passed away at age 51. Her story is totally separate, and I made a video of it because it's completely outrageous. Patty is still alive. David is still alive, but he is in assisted living because he kind of snapped many years ago. Candace passed away at a young age of 51, I want to say. Wait, I think she was like 51 or 53, but she died of, she had complications with diabetes. And, our father died young too, and our mother. And then these are like the grandkids of my parents. And that's all for this photo. And here's me and my bestie. I think we're at Wildwood. Yeah, I miss her. She died way too young. And the person who bought that big house for us was him, right here in the middle. My uncle Dick Ron Hagopian. He was running for mayor of Paterson against Graves, but he lost the election, and soon after he died of some kind of cancer. Nice guy, though. What an angel he was. He used to really take good care of us kids when we were neglected by our parents. He used to really like spoiling us. I miss him too, but he died when I was, I don't know, 5 or 6. He was 46 when he died, too young. And the last incident, I forgot to mention, me and Judy were sitting on the top step here, as we always did, and we were talking about Father Gerard, all the things that were happening, and we were just discussing it, how we were afraid of him and everything. And right after that, we went out that night. I think we were like, I don't know, 16 or 15, and we went to this restaurant. We used to hang out with these people that rode motorcycles and stuff. Anyway, we went with our other friend, Bertha, and we were discussing it with her too. And right after we talked about it, she was kidnapped and missing for days. And the police were out looking for her. She was 16, and she was kidnapped by this guy on, I forgot what avenue that was, somewhere in Paterson. And she was kidnapped and raped. And we were like, we got to stop talking about him, because every time we mention him, something bad happens. Now, I did see his obituary, so I feel like it's safe to talk about him now. But, just wanted to give you a little more of what happened when we lived there. But when we moved out of this house, things in our lives became normal. And like as if maybe the spells that he put in our yard that I told you about in part 1, the witchcraft, it was attached to the house somehow, because when we all went our separate ways and left the house, we no longer had any strange things happen in our life that we can attribute to that. And all of our psychic powers are gone now. And well, I wouldn't say all of them though, because I am highly intuitive and I get dreams of things that happen. So that I still get. Like I once dream of, about 3 months ago, I dreamed of a bug infestation, but in my dream it was on the ceiling. But what happened was a week later, I opened up my kitchen cabinet and there was a box of pasta where bugs hatched out of it. And there was like 1,000 bugs, same bugs that were in my dream. That happened. And then another thing that happened was, I want to say about 2 months ago, I had a dream that I was packing a suitcase with clothes, And then in my dream, I stepped back and I took 3 steps back and I said, wait a minute, this is not a suitcase. This is a casket. And when I woke up from that dream, I was like, oh, no, 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 someone's going to die. Who am I sending off? Like, am I packing someone's casket? And it was scaring me for the longest time. But then what happened was a week or 2 later, I'm doing my laundry and all my expensive dark clothes are in the wash machine. And what happens? A gallon of bleach falls off the shelf with a loose cap and pours itself all over my laundry. And then I realized it was the dream may have meant death to all my clothes, because that's what happened. And I had to go out and buy all new clothes. So it wasn't, the casket may not have indicated a person dying, but I was packing clothes into the casket in my dream. And then I said, you know what? Maybe that dream indicated death to my clothes. Although like 4 months later, my dog did pass away, but I don't think that was related. But anyway, sometimes we get dreams and they happen in a matter of weeks. And you wonder sometimes if it's your intuition or if it's just a coincidence. You'll never know for sure. But when you see the video that I'm going to attach here of my sister Lorraine and what happened to her when I went to see John Edwards, the psychic medium, and she came through immediately, then I realized, maybe I am highly intuitive and she was able to come through because of that. I don't know. But definitely see the video about John Edward and how she came through when I went to see him in one of his live shows. And that's it for now. If I think of anything else, I'll do a part 3. But I just wanted to let you know that. And everything I'm saying is the absolute truth. I would never embellish anything, for whatever purposes. I don't do that. So let me know your thoughts below. If you have any thoughts on this, I'm really curious to know. And if anyone is from this neighborhood, I would also like to know if you ever had any strange things happen. Now, I've also forgot to mention that the reason we think he was doing all these things to us was, all the witchcraft that was left. This was our front yard before the house was built. All the witchcrafty things that he left in our yard, the bones, the bag with pennies and chicken's feet, and all those weird witchcrafty things that were left in our yard, right directly across the street from his house. See? That was right after he wanted to buy our house to make a monastery out of it or whatever he wanted to call it. And my uncle said, no, 66,000, we're not selling. He only wanted to offer 66,000 for a 5,000 square foot house. I think it's like 5,400 square foot house. And even back then that was ridiculous. So, my uncle said no. And then ever since that happened, that's when all this crazy stuff was going on. And like we were a target because we wouldn't sell him the house. That's what we think. But anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on this too. Okay, take care now. Have a great day.